You have given to Nape to come and share out the report of the Nape 2023 with the public. We are truly grateful for this chance. I am Joyce Ebal, Manager Nape, UNEB. We are here as a team from the Uganda National Examinations Board to share with you this report, the 2023 findings on the achievement of P3 and P6 learners in numeracy and literacy. My colleague can introduce himself.
And of course, at the far end, we have Mr. Jumanyol Kennedy, who is a principal researcher still under Nape. Good morning to you.
Morning, Luke.
Yes. You can greet our people there.
Yeah, good morning, viewers. I'm Jumanyol Kennedy. I work with Joyce Nape, Uganda National Examinations Board, the Senior Research Officer in charge of data management.
It's a pleasure to have you both here today for the discussion. Now, can we start by defining or by explaining to us what Nape is, what Nape does?
Thank you. Nape stands for National Assessment of Progress in Education. It is a department in UNED, and this department is charged with the responsibility of carrying out assessment and monitoring progress in the teaching and learning. And also to follow up the trend, how these achievement levels are changing over time. The assessment is different from PLE in that it is not done at the final class. It's done in the middle classes so as to allow corrective measures to be done before these learners reach the final class. In 2023, UNEB conducted this assessment at the primary level, and the classes that are targeted at the primary level are P3 and 6. The subjects which are handled is numeracy and literacy in English. The last time we carried out this assessment was 2015. So we are here to share with you the findings of
So, Mr. Kennedy, why specifically did you look at P3 and P6?
Yeah, thank you. Like my colleague has said, we are looking at P3 and P6 because we want to give chance to stakeholders in education to be able to correct areas of improvement or challenge where learners have challenges. They will have a chance. For example, now we have highlighted areas for P3 learners, and we expect stakeholders to look at those so that they address them before they reach P6. Similarly, this is a little late because the P6 who were assessed are now in P7. So the results should have come out a little earlier to allow the teachers and other stakeholders to improve. So that's why we do it at those class levels.
And then can we look at the achievements maybe for P3 and P6?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll start with the P3. P3 overall, the whole country, in numeracy, what some people call mathematics, we had 58% of the learners were rated proficient. When we say rated proficient here, we mean the percentage of learners who are at that level where the curriculum expects them to be. Because at every class level, there is expectation from the curriculum where you're supposed to be. So when we say proficient, that means you are at that level. So in numeracy, 58% of the learners in this country are proficient, and 54 are proficient for literacy in English. Yeah, we also compare the results by gender. In numeracy, there was no difference between boys and girls, but in literacy, more girls than boys are at that level that is expected by the curriculum. We also looked at the results by school location. We found out that schools in urban areas are doing much, much better than schools in rural areas. And then by ownership, we also found out that in both subjects of literacy and numeracy, private schools, learners who are in private schools are doing much, much better than learners who are in government schools, what some people call public schools. We also looked at the results by district. 19 districts, like my senior told you, that we are now comparing where they were in 2018 and where they are in 2023. So 19 districts have not had any change between that time. 10 districts have less than a quarter of their learners at that level where they're supposed to be. And then 107 districts have just between 25 to 75% of their learners reaching where they're supposed to be. That is at P3. We also assess P6. So overall, again, the proficiency level was the same for numeracy, 58%, P3 and P6. But for literacy in English, we had 43%. So less than half of the learners in this country are where they're supposed to be in literacy in English. By gender, more boys than girls are reaching that level in numeracy, but in literacy, more girls than boys. It's the reverse, more girls than boys are at that level. Still, by school location, urban areas are doing better. Learners in urban areas are doing better than learners in rural areas. And then by school ownership, learners in private schools are also doing much, much better than learners in government schools. Yeah, we also looked at the same results by district. We found out that 16 districts have at least 75% of their learners rated proficient. That means 75% or more of their learners are where they're supposed to be. Six districts have less than a quarter, which is not very, very good. And then 104 have between 25 and 75% of their learners at that level where they're expected. That is in numeracy. In literacy in English, we have only 4 districts with at least 75% of their learners rated proficient. We have 48 districts which are not doing very, very well. They have less than a quarter of their learners reaching where they're supposed to be, and therefore more effort is needed to be put in place. We also talk to learners about what they think are the best practices at school level or in the class that can help enhance their learning and teaching processes. And these are some of the things the learners were telling us. For example, they want a promotion of a reading culture at that level, at the school level. They also, similarly, they want peer-to-peer learning, should be encouraged by teachers, and they want to have self-study and revision. And all those, of course, require availability of learning materials and books, readers at school. They also want the use of instructional materials during lessons. If you're, for example, talking about leaves, you don't just draw the leaves, but you should go and pick some leaves and bring to class here. They also want teachers and other stakeholders to create an inclusive and conducive learning environment, because they feel some of the learning environments are not very conducive. And then they also talked about enforcement of learners' discipline, because they say where the teachers are enforcing discipline, the performance seems to be better. Yeah, that is a summary of the results here.
Very interesting. Now, I'm very keenly interested in knowing who implements such that what the results you bring. Who implements them?
The implementers is actually everyone. Everyone. Now, maybe before we get onto the implementers, we have, in this survey, we took keen interest into learners with special needs education. And it was found out that in literacy in English, the achievement of P3 and P6 learners were comparable with the national level for the blind students, blind learners. However, their achievement in numeracy was low. In P3, the girls were better in numeracy than the boys, while there was no difference between the achievement of boys and girls in literacy in English. While in P6, the boys were better in numeracy and in literacy. The deaf were also included, and we note that the performance of this category is very low compared to the national level, extremely low. This is an area that we need to look into. So coming to the implementation, everybody has a role to play. I think we know the saying that it takes the whole village to raise up a child. So similarly in education, to educate a child is a role of everyone. We have the teachers to play their role. We have the parents to play their roles. We have the politicians to play their roles, play up their roles. You have also played your role as a media, enabling us to tell the public where we're having challenges and where they should come in. So in this, we had areas where the children were having difficulties. P3, numeracy, they were having difficulty in applying addition to word problems. Word problems, we're saying this is stated in form of words, but they are supposed to apply addition. So they were having challenges there. In literacy, completing a story, that is guided composition, where story is written with gaps and they are given words that they are supposed to use to fill in to make that the story flow. But they were having challenges there. In numeracy, representing information on a bar graph and a chart was challenging. And in literacy in English, using compound nouns in a guided composition was also a challenge.
Is that overall or that maybe rural areas?
This is overall. This is overall where they were having those challenges. So we have recommendations which were given, which we have given, and people who are to address them. Of course, with the issue of the teaching, that is, learners should be guided to know the difference between the histogram and a bar graph. They should be exposed to creative writing and engage in regular practices. This basically goes to the teachers in class. They should take note of that so that they emphasize those areas. There is need for availability, veil the necessary teaching and learning materials, and ensure that teachers put more emphasis on the identified areas. Now the materials here brings in almost everyone. Parents should be able to supply the scholastic materials that the learners do need. The head teachers should also play their role. School management should play their role. School proprietors, government should also play their role. I normally have a little bit of reservation to say government because we all form government. The president and the others are just our representatives. So it means all of us should play our roles. We are saying those who are charged with the responsibility to supervise the teaching and learning at school like the DO, the DIS, the tutors, those who train the teachers, they should look into this so that the teachers are also helped. Maybe they also have a challenge. So in serving teachers and those who are training to be teachers, emphasis should be put in some of these areas that has been highlighted so that they are equipped to handle these areas.
Okay, very interesting. Now, Mr. Kennedy, you, in the report, you gave us a summary of how the urban side is doing better, performing better, and also maybe the private side doing better. Did you also note down what could be causing such? Why is the private side better than the public institutions, and also why is it far better in the urban setting compared to the rural areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, we did not do it this time, but in the previous report we did. So we did find out, dig, and I will share the findings from that report because we did not want to repeat it this time. At that time, we found out that there were 2 or 3 key things. One was the parental involvement, because we found a significant difference in the way in which parents are involved. In the private schools, we found parents ask for accountability from schools. They go to schools, they find out whether teachers are teaching, how their learners are doing it, what we call visitation days, and so on. So they're involved. But in government schools, parents have kind of resigned. They send their children to school and leave them there until end of term. So there's less parental involvement. We also found out that for learners in private schools, parents support them by providing something to eat while at school. In the government schools, there are not many parents who support. So they stay on hungry, stay while they're hungry the whole day. And you know very well it is very difficult to learn when you do not have anything in your stomach. The other thing which was key was the availability of learning materials. Because in private schools, the parents avail all the required learning materials, but in government schools, parents have kind of resigned. We found cases where a child uses only 1 book for all the 4 subjects. And so when it is done, it is done. We also found cases where children do not completely have books. They are given, they write on the ground in brief. Teachers give work and they write on the ground. Teachers mark on the ground, and that is it. So they do not have any record of work that they have done. Yeah, those are some of the factors. Yeah.
Mr. Joyce, can we look at communities that host refugees? What are the findings from those specific places?
Now for schools hosting refugees at P3 and P6 class, more boys than girls were rated proficient in numeracy and literacy in English. At both P3 and P6 class, the achievement in numeracy and literacy in English was very low compared to the national level achievement. But also to note is that the girls are highly disadvantaged in the refugees.
Very interesting. And what did you also come up with some recommendations in this regard, particularly at these places hosting refugees?
Yes, we did. We are, for example, asking the stakeholders to develop some intervention strategies which should be tailored towards helping learners, and specifically girls, in the refugee schools hosting refugees. We are aware that there are already some education partners and other development partners who are there, but we are saying probably more can be done. Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. And this is quite an interesting assessment. And I'm triggered on the solutions. Who delivers these solutions, and who comes up with the solutions? Because, or do you just do the assessment, or there are also solutions you table?
We do the assessment. We have made recommendations. Recommendations is part of the actions that we want people to take. But the actual solutions that should be there should be taken up by the various stakeholders. For example, where we are saying that these learners should be guided, help to understand the difference between the bar graph and a chart. Then that one we are saying the teacher should handle. So the teacher now has to see how to help these learners to implement that. We are pointing out that in the refugee hosting schools, the girls are having a challenge. So we urge partners in education and other stakeholders to get there and find out what is it that is making the girls not perform well, and bring in the solutions, the intervention. UNEB does not really get into to offer that solution. But where we can, because for us we are an assessment body, if we find that the issue is related to assessment, yes, UNEP can come in.
Very interesting.
To offer a solution.
That is quite interesting, and doing something, it is always very important that you assess the progress of what is happening in there, and this is what Nape is doing. And of course, the quite interesting, most interesting is that even the recommendations are put there for you. So those responsible, those concerned, you don't have any excuse to give. Well, we are going in for a very short break and return with more of this discussion.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Family TV, enriching lives. Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Oh well, welcome back. You are still watching Issues at Hand here at Church of Uganda Family TV, and it was quite interesting that we've been discussing, of course, the assessment that was issued last week, and of course this was by the National Assessment of Progress in the Education System, and we've seen a number of challenges in there and also a number of recommendations, things like that to do. So I wanted to ask my guests here today, who is of course Mr. Kennedy and Mrs. Joyce here, about the previous assessments that we've been doing. Have we registered any success stories that the assessment was done in this year and this was realized, that we gave such recommendations and this is what was done?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, there are some. For example, each year we go out to assess. We have an assessment team which guides the assessment, and that helps us to collect contextual data. You want to know the context in which learners are learning. So in one of our previous reports, we indicated stakeholders that feeding, children need to feed at school. It may not be so much, but at least there must be something to bite at school, because the results were showing that schools where learners eat something from, we are doing much, much better than where learners are not eating anything. It looks obvious, of course, but we needed to prove that with the data. And indeed, school feeding policy came out after that, and we think that there should have been some input from that report. We also found out in one of our previous reports that there was a difference in terms of delivery of teachers. For example, teachers who joined primary teachers' colleges after senior 6 or had higher qualifications, those were doing better than teachers just who stopped at senior 4 and went to primary teachers' colleges. So we recommended that probably the entry requirement could be revised a little, because even in terms of grades, I think the grades were not very, very good at that time. And later, the Ministry of Education and Sports revised the entry requirement, and we think that was a result of that finding. We also found out that learners who go through nursery schools did better than those who start straight away from primary 1, and we made recommendations to the Ministry of Education, and I think now the Ministry of Education is developing what they call the early childhood development policy. I don't know how far it has gone, but it is, I think, at a high stage now. There are also people, of course, who use our report sometimes even without our knowledge. For example, in 2018, we disaggregated our results by district, and one of the districts that came out prominently was Kalangala. And some stakeholders were asking us, is this result true? Later we learned that actually one of the education development partners picked interest in Kalangala and heavily invested in Kalangala. So even in this report that we are sharing with the stakeholders, when you go through, you find Kalangala coming up, and I think that's the Irish government. They are also investing in Boyukwe. There are also other stakeholders, like, for example, UNICEF is doing a lot of work in Karamoja and other districts, and also other stakeholders. So yes, some of them we are aware that people have picked them and implemented. Some of them we are not aware. Thank you.
Okay, very interesting. And now, Mrs. Joyce, can we look at can we specify on subjects according to the assessment? Are there subjects that need improvement, and what solutions or what recommendations do you give in this regard?
Now, from this assessment, we are seeing that literacy in English is the children are having more challenges there.
This cuts across all?
This is across all, urban and rural. So we think that more emphasis should be laid in this area so that children are helped in literacy in English. As we know that English is our official language, yes. And if these children do not get this basic skill that they need to use in the other areas, it will become a problem. So attention should be given to literacy in English at this lower level.
Okay. And maybe on a personal level, is the problem with the teachers or it is a problem with the community, the learners?
We can say it can be both. It can be both. The teachers normally take the key stage in fostering the learning. So if the teacher is not adequately prepared to handle a subject, then it means this will spill over to the learner. But the learners also need support. Even the teachers themselves, they need support. The teacher may be okay, but the challenge is that this teacher lacks the material to help the learners develop these skills. For example, if they don't have enough reading materials to help the learners develop their reading skills, they may not be able to do much. And so that also calls for the parents' support to supply the reading materials which are needed and to be able to support schools and the teachers so that the teachers are able to deliver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, Mr. Kennedy, according to the assessment, what improvements have we achieved? What positives have we realized in there?
Yeah, there are some positives also, especially in numeracy. Between 2028 and 2023, we see the proportion of learners who are reaching the level where they're supposed to be is improving. At P3, it is both literacy and numeracy. And at P6, of course, it is only numeracy. Literacy has gone down. And like my senior said, that is a bit worrying because there are also components they need to apply the literacy in English also in numeracy. Probably it can also explain why some aspects of numeracy are not being done well because they need the comprehension skills also.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we talk about the disparities? You find a certain gender is doing well in this category, a certain gender is doing better in this. What causes the gender disparities?
The ideal situation is that both gender should be performing at the same level.
Exactly.
Because they are subjected to the same curriculum,
same
the
class,
same class, the same teacher. But frequently we see that the males tend to perform better in numeracy compared to the girls, and the girls seems to outperform the males in literacy.
Okay.
Maybe there's, I don't know whether there are some biological issues there, but also I think the exposure that this group of learners are put to. The girls could be doing more practice regarding communication, so that it helps them to develop their communication skills, while the boys, on the other hand, could be involved more onto activities that enable them to encounter issues related to numeracy more compared to the ladies, the girls. That could also be that. But the ideal situation is that both should be able to perform at the same level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So how can the stakeholders in this particular regard make use of these findings to foster improvement in the education sector?
Yeah, thank you. I think one of them is to be able to implement, look at the report, pick out what you can do. Like we have already said, we are happy to Family TV for picking out this, because you are the representative and the central dissemination, and you picked it up and invited us. That's why we are here and engaging with another set of stakeholders. So even the other stakeholders should see what they can do, because we are seeing parents are involved, provision of learning materials, psychological support, teachers are involved, they should do what they are supposed to do. We are also recommending, for example, some short courses for the teachers, and that will require either district or central government to organize that for the teachers. There should be supervision at school level by the district education office. That should be done, and and other stakeholders also. You can, for example, talk about this even in churches and other forum gatherings. This can be done so that mobilization, communities are mobilized, so that they get to know that we need to get involved in the education of our learners. You asked a little earlier about where is the problem, teachers or community? And I think both, because we also had cases where you find one teacher is teaching over 300 learners in one class. The class is full, for example, and even where to stand is a problem. Some learners are standing by the window side and learning. So in that case, you cannot blame the teacher alone. Because there's a number that probably he can handle. But there are also cases where teachers come late to school, for example. So that's why we are saying all the stakeholders should be involved and play their part.
Okay. So if these recommendations that you have given in this assessment are followed, where do you see the future of the education system here in Uganda?
If these recommendations are followed and all the stakeholders play their role, we hope to see that these learners will improve in their level of achievement in both numeracy and literacy.
Okay. So I'm very keen to listen to the recommendation. Can you kindly re-echo the recommendations that were given from this report?
In brief, the recommendations that we have, we are recommending that learners should be guided to recognize the difference between a histogram and a bar graph. And learners should be exposed to creative writing and engage in regular practice. And this recommendation goes to the teachers. So teachers should try to address these areas. We are also saying that teachers should be availed with the necessary materials, that is the learning materials, to ensure that teachers put more emphasis on the difficult areas which were highlighted. And this recommendation goes to parents, head teachers, school management committee, school proprietors, and Ministry of Education as well. And we're saying extra support should be given to schools in rural areas to facilitate improvement of learners' achievement. And also emphasis should be put on girls in the refugee hosting schools.
Okay.
So for the improvement in schools in the rural areas, still parents is part of it, Ministry of Education, partners in education, all the district education officers, and all those who are responsible for the education standards, the tutors and the CCTs should come in to help the teachers in the rural areas so that they are able to assist the learners in those areas.
Wow, very interesting indeed. And I hope the concerned stakeholders have really taken up these recommendations. I was very, very keen. I wanted to re-echo them because we had them in the first segment, and I understand anyone could tune in to Family TV in the second segment, and they do not understand or get to know of the recommendations that were given in such an assessment, which is really, really helpful. So maybe I think it is the only challenge we are facing right now is the aspect of time, and I'm going to request, starting with Mr. Kennedy, you give us your final remarks in this regard.
Yeah, thank you very much. One, I want to thank you for inviting us, giving us this opportunity to share with the stakeholders the findings. I want to request that we are going to have the copies of this report on our website, and we also have some in office. Let's take keen interest in these reports because they're very useful, and the places or communities or districts which have taken keen interest have been able to improve their level of achievement of their learners, and that is clearly in the report. And I also wanted to take this opportunity to clarify maybe to the viewers clearly that we are calling this numeracy and literacy in English because these are like application part of mathematics and English. That is the ones we are assessing. These are things that learners are supposed to go with outside as they go out. For example, when a learner goes to buy something, you have 10,000 and you buy something for 8,000, the learner should be able to know that I'm expecting 2,000 without doing it on a calculator. The learners should be able to interpret simple things like signposts, should be able to fill in a form, such things at the bank and so on. So you can see that our learners need to be helped because that is where we are going. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. And now, Mrs. Joyce, please, your last remarks.
Thank you. First, as Kennedy said, we want to appreciate Family TV very much for giving us this opportunity to air out these findings. It would be useless for us to carry out a research and the findings when we put the book on the shelf. I want to take this opportunity to make a call to all the stakeholders. Recommendations have been made. If implementation is not carried out, then the findings still will not be useful. So I want to urge all the stakeholders in education, that is all of us, to play our role and see that we help our learners so that they are able to improve. I also want to inform the viewers that we are going to distribute the hard copy or copies of this report to the districts, but we want to call upon the district officers to enable that these reports get down to schools, because that's where improvement can be made, so that the teachers are made aware and so that they're able to implement this. I also want to take this opportunity to thank UNICEF, because it was through UNICEF that we were able to carry out this assessment. So without them coming in to give UNEB the necessary assistance that they needed in terms of funding to carry out this, it would have not been possible. We also want to thank our mother ministry for being very supportive and seeing that we carry out this assessment. Also at this point, I want also to inform viewers that we are carrying out a wide dissemination of this report. And tomorrow we are going to have on the print media, that is Monitor and New Vision. This report is going to be published. So please take interest and read. You'll get full details in there, more detail than what we have discussed here, so that you understand. And as Kennedy has already mentioned, we will also put these reports, all our publications are there on the UNEP website. But we will also look at the opportunity through the DISs, through UNEP portal, so that this information gets to school. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Joyce Ebal, who is the manager for the National Assessment for progress in the education. So it is quite interesting. And also Mr. Jumanyol Kennedy, who is a senior principal researcher also at Nape. Quite interesting. And of course, I understand you have gotten mentally to the stakeholders and players in the education system. You have to take keen interest in the such an assessment, because it drives, or it gives you a direction of what you should do better or what you should sideline. So please do take up this. They have also told you it is going to be issued out to the public, so please make sure you get a copy of this assessment, and of course read through and see where to improve, because we all strive for the better of this education system. Well, I want to appreciate you so much. Also, I want to appreciate Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe. My name is Luke Majumba Naitwe, and I want to wish you a lovely day.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Family TV, enriching lives.
Do you know that